October 18th, 2021. You're listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Don.
And we're back again to talk
Here
to
we are.
all of you. One day we'll have an actual song that we could just sing in the beginning, since I keep singing every time.
A couple of silver spoons. Oh, wait, sorry, that's already been taken.
Right, yeah, no. So I went and saw Sam the other day. That was, it's nice to see Sam, but it seemed weird. Like, I didn't ask him too much because everybody's drinking and those guys are all kind of unintelligible sometimes when they're drinking. And I'm just not quite sure, like, why he's even up here. I mean, if he's just up here to visit, that's cool, whatever. He's just from West Virginia, folks, which is not like, what is it, 3 or 4 hours for him or something?
Something like that.
It's not terrible. But,
he's the main.
He's there with his wife. I've never met his wife, and she seemed really nice. And, they're just there to watch the Browns game. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'll hang out. And it's like the first quarter and 5 minutes, like the Browns were down like by 2 touchdowns and a field goal or whatever. And I'm like, all right, I'm leaving. I'm not sitting here watching this. I mean, I haven't watched any of the games, and I know we've done well on some of them, and they were playing a good team. But I was just like, this is just going to bum me out. So I'm going to leave. But anyway, that was, that's basically all I've really done that I can think of off the top of my head. They started working on my shed. I don't know if I mentioned this before, because like they had come. They
did the pad.
Yeah, they did the pad, because I had a shed a long time ago. It flooded constantly under feet of water, and so had it torn down. Had to wait a while. Had to work with the city. Got a cement pad put into a different place in my yard. And then I got, this company coming and building me a shed. All this is dumb expensive, by the way. It's just stupid.
Right.
Everything is. And they basically came out finally, and they built like the frame of one wall. And then they're like, we'll be back. And then they didn't come back. And then they told me that they're going to be gone all this week and that they'll probably come next week. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's going to start snowing eventually. I hope you guys get it done. They're nice people, so I don't pitch a bitch. And right now, the way the labor market is, it's hard to get anything done. So, I mean, what can you do? It's not like you can just stop it and give it to somebody else or something and flip your wig just because it's not done on time. It's just like, just do it right. Just if you take a snail's crawl, whatever, just, I don't want to deal with, I don't want to close the door and have the wall fall down. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nails falling out, water leaking in. Just as long as you build it right, I don't care. Just want it done before winter so I can put some shit in there. So, yeah. You know what I was thinking? You live with, your ex-wife, and you guys had horses, and I was watching so this is a good topic for you. I was watching a, Western, and I'm watching Charlton Heston. It was like a Western for whatever reason, with Charlton Heston in it. And he's riding around on a horse. And I'm just looking at it. I'm just thinking in my head, it's really weird that people ride horses, right? Like it's this animal that we're hopping on it, right?
Right.
And then we're like steering its head around with like a rope and like a, the thing that it chews on or whatever in its mouth. And we're like, we want to go this way, and it turns its head and stuff, and it's all like, rah, and then you're kind of kicking it to get it to go. And I'm just watching it, and I'm thinking, I'm like, it's really kind of bizarre. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's seen it, I'm not saying like nobody, it's not like, wow, I've never seen that before. Like but it's like, it's the first time I've like really sat there and thought about just how fucking bizarre it is, right? We don't do that with any other real animals. I mean, camels or whatever, or burros or something, but you know what I mean? It's just like, we're not really like,
they ride donkeys.
It's just,
right. You know what I mean? The animals, they'll try to ride it.
But we have legs dolphins. Ourselves, like we can
swimming.
It's like, oh, that animal's got more legs than me. I'm going to ride that animal. I don't know. It's fucking weird looking. Like, if you really
Shamu's out there jumping out of the water with people like holding on to it and like jumping off of him and like, hey, doing tricks.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, Yeah, that's a good example though. Like you would train like, I don't know, the killer whales, and then that would like carry you around instead of having a boat.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
everybody would just have their own whale. Like, you going out to the harbor? Yeah, I'm getting on my whale. Got a saddle on it and shit, and you're just like, woo!
Got a couple of dolphins. Like Aquaman, you get some stingrays, you put some leashes on them, and you just get some skis.
Just riding them around.
We went all the times, like when I was married and stuff, and we had the horses in the barn and stuff. I rode a horse once.
Wow.
Because number one, the horses she had were not rideable because they were never broken. So it's like they were just, you know what I mean? It's like there's nobody getting out of these horses. Like, okay. And then the one day it was like, hey, these people are riding horses and stuff. We're going to go down there and ride horses. I was like, okay, whose horses? They're like, their horses. Like, okay, fine. And I got on the horse. I've ridden a horse before when I was a kid and stuff. You know, you sit there and you in a circle or whatever. But this one was like, she was like, all right, we're going on a path. We're going in the woods, up and down hills. And I'm like, I don't trust it, first of all.
Right.
Because it's bigger than me.
Yep.
And there's like 50 different ways that it can kill me in a second without me even knowing about it. Exactly. Because it's like, you could go drive a car down the street. You get a flat tire, your car goes, and then you pull over to the side of the road. You know, you fix it. You know, you're fine. You're on a horse, and this thing sees like a mouse or something, and it just stick breaks. You know what I mean? Somebody hits like some leaves on the ground, and it jumps back and throws you, and you crack your skull.
It took out Superman, right? Christopher Reeves.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucked him up.
This thing, I was on the back of this horse riding it. And I swear to God, it went towards this tree. And I'm like, no. And I'm trying to pull it right to get it away from the thing. It tried to rub itself up against the tree to get me off of it. I like had to like lift my leg up and be like, what the hell is going on here? She's like, oh, he doesn't want you on him. And I'm like, well, then I don't want to be on him.
Right.
Like, you know, if this giant monster doesn't want me on it, I will oblige.
Totally. They are, you know, like I don't know what it is. You don't like in movies and stuff, like if you've never been around a horse, like in movies and stuff, like the horse's head, and it's always like eye level with the person petting it or whatever. Yeah. So it seems like it's a tame, happy thing, you know, and they are. I mean, I'm not saying they're crazy or nothing, but when you get around one, like their head's like a lot taller than yours. Like they're kind of looking down at you a lot, you know, and it's like, you're like, that's a lot bigger than I thought it was, you know? Like, you just think like, man, that thing could fuck me up. It's big.
My ex's ex-husband, whatever, the guy before me, he's a big dude. He was easily probably like 300 pounds, you know?
Right.
And he's a big dude, and he's a burly dude. He's like a biker and stuff, kind of, you know? And he's just like, yeah, you know, badass fights and all that stuff. And I guess they were in the barn. And she's like, "Oh, I gotta give the horse this thing, but I have to hold the horse's head down." And he goes, "Oh, I'll take care of that." And he like wrapped his arm around the horse's neck and like pulled the horse's head down. He's like, "All right, there you go." She's like, "That's not going to work." He's like, "Yeah, well." The horse picked its head up and lifted him off the ground.
Yeah, like, I believe it. Yeah,
you know, he's just like, "What the?" You know, let me. He's like, get me out of here.
Yeah, you think you're going to outmuscle a horse. That guy wasn't bright.
Horse, stupid. Horses are just dumb.
That's why it's called horsepower. Woo!
You go to the fair. You go to the fair, and they're like, she's like, let's go look at all the horses. And you go walking down the aisle of the fair with all the horses in their little stalls, and they're all facing butt side out. You know, the side that kills you most because they just kick just for the hell of it because some little Jimmy decided to go ahead and poke it in the butt. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm minding my own business, just walking around. I hated it. Oh my God. I was so paranoid walking. I was like, I don't want to go through there. I don't. She's like, stop being a baby. They're not going to kick you. And I'm like, that's exactly when you're going to get kicked, is when you say you're not going to get kicked.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Thankfully, I never got kicked. Did you ever get kicked?
No, I got stepped on. I got dragged. I got bit.
Fuck all that. Nope.
I almost had one kill my kid. I was like, get out of here. It was like a movie. Run! The horse is free. Get out of here. She was like 3. I was like, she doesn't understand me. She's going to die.
That's not good, but it's funny. That's in retrospect.
Right. No, I mean, afterwards it was funny. At that moment, I was like, holy shit, I'm going to kill my kid.
So, yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
No, that was it. I was just going to say, I was going to finish it up by saying horses are dumb.
Yeah. I mean, if you enjoy them, it's whatever, but I don't know. It just seemed, I just watched it. I was like, it's just a weird thing.
I'll pass.
Yeah. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about, 8th grade. Okay. And, I know it's a weird topic, but it's not much of a topic, but I kind of wanted to talk about it because, like you and I
didn't know you were in 8th grade.
No, I know.
Oh.
I know that, man.
This is weird.
Of course. I know. I'm not talking about you and I in 8th grade. That'd be weird. That's funny. No. But in 9th grade, right? Even though like I had repeated 9th grade, not due to education so much as it's a whole nother fucking story.
That comes later.
Yeah. Don and I were in 9th grade together, and we were in the occupational work course, right? And we both had jobs, right, in 9th grade. And I was thinking, like, I remember 8th grade, right? And I was sitting there thinking to myself, 8th grade was a weird year for me personally, because not that just, every kid, that's personally, I think middle school, which is what that was at that time, is like the worst time of your life at least as a teen boy or growing up, as a very young 13 years old or whatever, 12, 13, is that like you're just going through all those body changes. You know what I mean? You were a kid last year or whatever,
Right.
And then now you're on your way, or you haven't hit it yet, but and that's bad too, because you're in this mix, right? You're still a little kid because you haven't hit puberty, but that one dude who's an asshole that's in your class is like an adult man right now. You know what I mean? He's all fucking like twice your size and shit and can crush you because you haven't had the response that he has and shit. So that's a terrible time. Then you get acne and body odor and you know what I mean? It's all awkward. Girls are there and you're into them, but you're not, you know what I mean? Like the whole thing
like, hey,
sucks.
How you doing? They're like, you stink. Like,
you're just trying to figure shit out
of nowhere.
Right. Just a minute ago, you were fine. And now, you run around a little bit and you reek. It was crazy. It's a terrible time. But that's not, that's part of what I wanted to talk about, but that's not exactly. Right. But in my life, it was weird because what happened was, is that I live with my step family, right? And not in 8th grade. Like 8th grade was the first year where my dad had moved to Jamestown and I was living with my dad now, without my step family in Ohio, right? So like we moved to Ohio in 1981 when they got married. And, I was in 4th grade at that point. And, so I went through, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, having this house that I lived in, a big house. It was a big colonial in the same city with, 5 other kids, and 6 if you include my brother, and and a stepmom and my dad and everything. And so there's transition now all of a sudden that, it goes from like, the family dinner around the table and everything to, just coming home and eating a pot pie on the couch watching TV. I liked it. You know what I mean? Like I hated living with my step family. So, it was cool, but it was different. You know what I mean? Right. Like it was a different time for me and I wasn't working, right? Like you couldn't, there was that one place you could work at, Danny Boys, right? Because Danny Boys was like this, it was like a produce market that you could go to that was kind of like not a grocery store, but like you could buy your produce there and some miscellaneous stuff. I think they sold meat and stuff too, but it wasn't like you were going to go there and buy like milk or something. It was just,
it was a farmer's market.
Yeah, it was a farmer's market. And because of the laws, at least back then, it may still be that way now, I'm not sure. But back then, if you worked on a farm operation, you could hire kids as young as 14. And so there were some kids, like I think Roger Taylor, et cetera, had worked at Danny Boys at that age or whatever. Maybe even earlier than 14. You know what I mean? But anyway, you could get a work permit and work earlier, maybe even 13 or something. But if you wanted, like when you got into ninth grade in Ohio, like if you wanted to work before you were 16, because 16 is like the legal age when you can just start working. They're just like, yep, go in there and start working on the mill. You know what I mean? Press steel, kid. Right. No, I mean, maybe for
Here's
somebody.
Some gloves.
Right. take this fucking blowtorch. You're gonna learn to weld today. No, but you could get a work permit and start working at 15. And that's what, Don did. I didn't have to do that because I was 16, I think, when I started ninth grade again. Anyway.
I started at 14. I was 14 when I worked at Wendy's.
Yeah, or I might be wrong and I did get a work permit. I can't even remember how we got those work permits. Like, I don't think we went to City Hall or anything, did we?
No, you had to you get them from the school.
Yeah.
And then you took them to work, and then they signed them, and then your parents signed them. You took it back to the school, and then you stood there looking at them like, so what's going on? They're like, all right, you can go to work.
Yeah, I don't remember how that went. I don't know. Because I got my job before OWA, I got it in the summer.
Well, yeah, that's true. You already had a job.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure how I didn't get a work permit, but I can't imagine I was 16 in ninth grade because then I would have been like 20 when I graduated high school. So something's not right there. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The laws were weird. So, but in eighth grade, I didn't have any money. So, and the reason I was thinking about this was because I was thinking about the Commodore 64, right? And I remembered I had one in eighth grade. Like I acquired one, new one in eighth grade. And I was sitting there trying to think about it. And I was just like, where did I get the money for that? Like, because I think that would have been about $300 back then. It was like $150 for the Commodore and another $150 for the disk drive. And, and I know that I had it because like, I remember having the discs in class. And I remember like taking it to California with me and everything and having it in California. At one point, my mom tried to make it look like burglars had broken into the house and like stole the disk drive from me. And I bought it for a little while until I realized that she really wasn't that concerned that somebody had broken into the house. You know what I mean? And then I was kind of like, all right, I know she's hidden it somewhere and I'm going to find the fucking thing. Just her being dumb. It was some form of punishment. It was like her creative way of trying to keep me from using my computer or something, like I was going to suddenly be like, well, there's no computer. I guess I'll start cleaning the house. You know what I mean?
I guess I'm going to go read a book.
Right. Like none of that was going to happen. it was, so anyway, but in eighth grade, I had this and I was trying to think to myself, like, and I was thinking, I didn't work, right? Like what I did was for any kind of money, is my dad made me, my dad had no money, by the way. So my dad made me a deal. He was like, you wash the dishes all week and I'll give you $2 a week as an allowance if I did the dishes. That was it. That was $2, right? But like, if you have no money and then you have $2, like that's, a significant difference, especially when at that time, you could go to the National Movie Theater and see a movie for $1. And, you could do something else with that, play some video games or something with that other $1. But there was a little bit of entertainment you could do because like, I did not have the kind of family where I could just be like, Dad, can I borrow $5? No, it would never happen. So anyway, I think maybe like, I got that money through some sort of an inheritance of some sort. Like someone died, like my grandfather died in Germany or something. I got the Camaro from Bailey from my grandmother dying in Germany, right? From like my second car that I ever owned.
Right.
And that was like, $1,300 I paid for it. I think I got $1,000 from my grandparents when that happened. Not in eighth grade, folks. This was after high school. And the rest of the money I came up with myself because I was working. But but like in eighth grade, so anyway, And I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, I wasn't working. And then I was thinking about, like, what was Don doing? Like, what were you doing in 8th grade? Like, you weren't working either. Like, what was your life like at that point? Like, you couldn't go buy comic books. You didn't have any money. I mean, and I don't think your parents were like, here's $20, Don. Go buy whatever you want. Like, you kind of were in the same boat I was in a way. I mean, maybe once in a while you'd get a Christmas card or something with money in it or whatever. But tell me, like, if you remember, what was 8th grade like for you?
Oh, it was horrible. No,
not the school thing we talked about. It's more the financial thing.
Yeah. I was never good with money. I was never good with my money. I never got an allowance. I like, like every so often my dad would like hand me $1 and I'd be like, what's this for? And he'd be like, you going to question it or you going to take it? And I'd just like, okay, thanks. And I would take it.
Right. Sure.
And it was just weird. I was like, okay. And then sometimes I'd be like, hey, can I get an allowance? And they'd be like, sure. What are you going to do around the house? And I'd be like, well, nothing. And I was like, what do you mean? What am I going to do around the house? I need money to go, to the store and buy a candy bar or something. And they were like, no. So it's like, I would try to save money. I wasn't really that good at it. In 8th grade, really the only things I was buying would be it would be comic books,
right?
And I was at that point. I'm pretty sure. I want to say that's when I started going to Collector's Warehouse. Because like when I was 13 or 14 or something like that, or when I was turning 14, because freshman year would be, I went in,
14, 15 freshman year,
14.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then, so then 8th grade, I would have been 13 coming out as 14. Got it. Yes. So 8th grade was the year that would have been the exact year, I guess, that I met Davey from Collector's Warehouse.
Yeah.
So the only things I was doing was riding my bike around. You don't need money for that. And I was comic books, I wanted comic books.
But how would you buy comic books? I mean, just with the $1 your dad gave you once in a while? I mean, I know some books were that cheap, but
when I was 13, I started going to Collector's Warehouse.
Right.
And I would go there all the time. And I was so in love with comic books and so in love with, because I was just like, oh my God, it's a comic book store. It's like they got all these comic books and games and posters and pictures and everything. I wrote a letter on a piece of paper, basically saying, hello, my name's Don Anderson. I am 13 years old. I'm going to be 14 soon. And I know that I can't get a job or anything like that, but I'm willing to work for like $1 an hour. I put something ridiculous. I was like, I would work for like $1 an hour.
Write. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And I was like, and I'll do anything just to work here. I was like, I just wanted to work there because I just wanted to be around it. And I was such a little scaredy cat that I went on Sunday when they were closed and I slid it under the front door. Remember you remember where Collector's Warehouse used to be? We're up behind up on Lorraine Road by where where McDonald's.
I mean, we used to go there, right? It was there, for a short while in 9th grade, and then it became Davies, and he moved it. He
moved Davies. Davies was around the corner, yeah.
Yeah.
But Collector's Warehouse was up on that up in that plaza on the very far end.
Okay.
On the very far left. So it was like hidden away, what I mean?
Right.
And
so I kind of remember that. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry. And I slid the note under the door, I put my phone number on there. It's like, if you could use the help or if you need anything, just here's my number. You can call me. And the next time I walked in there, I went in there like a couple of days later, not doing any. I was like, I just came in to look at comic books and stuff. And I walked in there and Davey's behind the counter and he goes, hey, you're the kid that put the note under the door, aren't you? And I just went, oh. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, man, I'm sorry. He goes, I'd love to help you. He goes, I can't hire anybody. I don't have work for another person. He was like, it's just like a one-man job here. and I'm doing, he's like,
Yeah.
I could take care of it. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, well, that's cool. I said, I figured I'd ask, I love comic books and da da da. And he goes, I'll tell you what though, you know where this bank is on the mall strip? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, take this envelope to the bank and give it to one of the tellers and tell them it's a deposit and come back with the receipt. And I was like, okay. And I got on my bike and I rode up to the mall and I went into the bank and I gave him the envelope. I got the receipt. I came back. I gave him the receipt. He goes, go ahead and pick 4 comic books off the shelf.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh, okay. So every week, that's what I would do. That's how I got my comic books. Every week I would go there. I would run his money. I didn't know I was running money. His deposits from the store,
Right.
And it's like, I would end up running to the bank to deposit the money for him. So he didn't have to do it. And when I came back, he was like, yeah, just go ahead and help yourself. Take a couple comic books.
Wow.
So, and then, and then I come home and my brothers are like, where are all these comic books coming from? And I was like, yeah, man. I'm like, I got to hook up. and that was really when I started reading all different kinds of stuff. That's when I started getting like Captain America's, Thor's, and X-Men's, and X Factors. And
that was really cool to do that.
So,
hey,
yeah.
So did Bailey start going up there at that time too? Like, how did you Bailey? Because I know Bailey was involved in that Collector's Warehouse video or not video. You know what I'm.
There was a video place next door.
Well, I mean, he used to go up there and sit and on those bar stools and with you and stuff like that. I mean, you know what I mean. So I was like, was it eighth grade? You guys were both up there, or what?
Well,
or
first of all,
him a lot less than you.
I'll get to that one. First of all, let me tell everybody.
Yeah,
this was the greatest 3 stores situated next to each other in the world, because there was Collector's Warehouse.
Right.
There was First Run Video, which had all the movie rentals and all the posters, and then there was a Domino's. So there was like, I was just like, I could walk over there and get a soda, and the guys at Domino's knew me. They were like, oh, it's Donnie from Collector's Warehouse. Yeah, give him whatever he wants, and they'd give me free drinks, and it's like, sweet, and I go into the video store and I'd be like, I have that poster. They'd be like, yeah, sure, here you go, Donnie, and it's like, sweet. But anyways, I met Bailey at the end of 8th grade, towards the end of 8th grade.
All right.
Because I was getting so many comic books and up at Collector's Warehouse, that my thing to do was make photocopies of all the pictures I liked. If there was an awesome comic book cover, because I'd go to Clay Mueller's house.
Right. What, do you have a copier in his house or something?
He had a copier in his house.
Really? Wow, that's weird.
Yeah, his dad ran his own business.
Huh.
So, dude, Clay Mueller's house was awesome. They had a pinball machine. They had all this cool stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, and we would go over there, and that's what we would do. I'd go over there. I'd print out pictures, all the pictures I wanted, cool pictures, and battle scenes, and superheroes and villains and stuff. My locker was plastered with black and white copies of comic book pictures, faces, and stuff. And remember how in the Trapper Keepers you could cut the seal, you cut the plastic, and you can insert pictures.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Into the cover, And so I was doing that with comic book covers. I had a big picture of Wolverine slashing down and stuff like that. And some dude walked up to me in the library, was like, oh, you like comic books, huh? And I go, yeah. And he goes, you know Bill Bailey? And I was like, no. He goes, that's him over there. And he pointed and goes, you should talk to him. He liked comic books too. And he goes, hey, Bailey. And Bailey's like, what? He goes, this kid likes comic books. He goes, really? And he came walking over.
Wow.
And sat down.
How bizarre.
And that's how me and Bailey.
You know what? You met Bailey because of a Trapper Keeper, and you guys met me because of basically a Trapper Keeper.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
It's kind of strange. Yeah.
That's like South Park said, the Trapper Keeper. It's the main thing. But I had already been going to Collector's Warehouse, and I think he had known about it or was going, because it was just like, the comic book store? And he was like, yeah. And I remember going in there and Davey being like, you hang out with that kid? And I was like, well, no, I don't know him. Like, I'm like, I just met him.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, he talks a lot. I was like, yeah, well, you know how adults are with kids,
Yeah.
He's like, he's always up here asking for stuff, trying to get free stuff.
Now, were you, taking guitar lessons? When did you start taking guitar lessons?
Fuck. That's a good question.
You were taking them in ninth the minute I met you. I mean, there was not that.
Because
that didn't start after I met you. When I met you, you were taking them.
It would have to be like seventh. Yeah, it was like seventh, eighth grade. No, because I was in that stupid band in seventh grade, and I didn't start. And I was just doing. I didn't know what I was even doing. I was just like plunk, plunk, plunk. So I would say probably eighth grade.
So your first guitar, you're not the. I've seen your brother's guitars. Your first guitar. Where did you get this? Where did you buy it yourself?
Sears. No, Christmas. I got it for Christmas. I begged my mom and dad for a guitar. They got me some cheapo Harmony.
That's cool, though. I mean, parents, at least you wanted to embrace music, and your parents got you something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's a cool gift to get. Like, you know,
I wasn't going to play Ian's guitar. He played one of them stupid old 50s Brian Setzer big hollow body guitars. I was like, this is dumb. I need something cool. Like it looks like a V or a spaceship or something. But it was like 1984. I got my first guitar, so I was only 11, but I didn't know how to play, so I didn't start taking lessons until 4 years after that. So so like freshman year, probably the end of eighth grade, I started taking lessons.
So So then, Packard and George.
Yeah.
Chris Gilbert in the beginning there. How'd you guys decide to partner up and be a band? Because it's kind of an interesting thing. Like, I just want to say to the audience out there, because everybody's probably been in high school and has seen this kind of thing. It's weird because I'm not I hung out with the musicians like Don and these guys were talking about, right? And they were, I was into the music, right? Not necessarily all the music you guys were playing, but no, I like some of it. But I was, my brother was really into metal and music, and all these guys were too. But what's interesting about high school is that different groups of people become bands together. You know what I mean? Like there's four dudes or 3 or 4 dudes, depending on, somebody knows somebody that's not in the school or whatever. They form a band. You got glam guys over here. You got more of progressive rock guys over there. There's lots of metal guys at this time, different long haired metal bands, but they're all doing different things. And it's like you, Tom, George, the drummer doesn't matter right now because it changed.
Yeah, right.
But you, Tom, and George kind of decided. And for the most part, I realized George kind of was just going to do whatever Tom said. Tom was like, I'm going to play guitar. Right. George, you play bass. And George was going to be like, all right. Because that's how that dude was. So it's really more like, how did you and Tom decide to form a band? Because I don't know.
I'm going to be honest with you. I really don't know.
No?
Because I was playing with Gilbert and Roger Taylor.
Okay.
Roger Taylor's playing bass, not Duran Duran's Roger Taylor.
No.
For everybody out there.
Yeah.
The bass player from, you know what I mean?
Right.
The 3 of us would go over to Gilbert's house and we'd sit in his garage and we didn't know anything. I was barely playing Smoke on the Water.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I didn't have good enough equipment. I didn't have nothing. So I don't know. Somehow Packard and George were playing with 2 other dudes or with 1 other dude or something like that. So somehow it was obviously freshman year.
It would have been early. It would have had to been early freshman year. You guys were in a band when I met you guys.
8th grade.
Okay.
It was 8th grade. Yeah, it was okay. It had to have been towards the end of 8th grade. Because I was like, I honestly don't even remember 8th grade, man. Through all my years of school.
I know, that's why we're having this conversation, because I can't remember 8th grade either. That's why. That's why we're talking about.
You were the only person. You're the only person I remember having a class with in high school, because I didn't have classes with Rom or Oz or Packard or George or, you know what I mean. I never had any of them dudes in my classes, so it's like that's why it always throws me off. That's how I met Packard, French class, because him and I were in the same French class.
And you said to him in French, "Do you want to be in a band?"
we played music together, the Casbah. No, so somehow we crossed paths that way, and I was like, and it was like he goes, well, me and George is a bass player. And I was like, well, me and Chris is a drummer. And he's like, well, we kind of looked at each other like, and I was like, and I can sing and play guitar. And he's like, and I play guitar. And I was like, oh, well, look at that. There's a band. I was like, okay, let's see what we can do. And the four of us just came together and we just started playing.
I bet like Tom was completely like mellow and cool about it. Probably laughed at some jokes and stuff, but I bet he was stoked. You know what I mean? You know how that guy is about his music, even back then as a kid. Like you wouldn't know talking to him. You'd be like, yeah, we can do stuff. But I bet he went home and that's all he thought about, like for fucking days.
It might even. Oh, I got it. Now I remember.
All right, cool.
I totally remember how it started. Okay. Music City.
Yeah.
Music City North. Remember Music City?
That's where Donnie.
That's where I took my.
Oh no, that's not where you took lessons, right? Or was it?
Yeah. No. That's yeah.
Yeah. Right. Guitar World or Guitar Center. That was next to it. That's what I was thinking it was.
That wasn't. Yeah. And that wasn't even around.
Right.
So that was.
It was just Music City.
That was on the strip.
Yep.
Yeah. I took guitar lessons there. Packard took guitar lessons there. George took bass lessons there. Chris took drum lessons there. Me, Tom, and George.
Wow.
This is
fucking weird.
Me, Tom, and George all had the same teacher, Rich, who I'm friends with on Facebook.
No kidding.
And I still talk to him. I'm just like, dude, you were the greatest. Like, you're not metal or anything like that, but you're such a great guitar player. Blah, 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 whatever. He was our teacher, the three of us. And Jim, the guy who owned Music City, was like, hey, I think we're going to do like a recital type thing and kind of get all the students to break off into groups or singularly or whatever. Everybody can do a song or a number. And that's when it was like, hey, you and Tom and George know each other. Why don't you guys all do a song? And that's how we all came together. I think maybe that was after we got together. No, I think that's pretty much what brought us together. Was like, why don't you? Because Rich knew that I knew them guys, so he was like, why don't the three of you get together and do something? And I was like, well, our drummer, we got a drummer right here taking lessons over here. We'll take him. So, but then they never did the recital or anything. We were going to do Detroit Rock City by Kiss.
You guys were pretty dedicated to going to band practice every week, which was no small endeavor since nobody actually owned a car. You know what I mean? Like you guys have to carry your equipment over there. You got to get a ride or whatever it is. Every week and stuff. Like I could just get on my bike and go. I don't know. Did you ride your bike carrying a guitar case? Did you do that, or did you?
I never had a case. I always had to carry the guitar.
Just sling it on your back.
I rode my bike with my guitar and with an amplifier. Right, so I got the guitar strapped on. I got it around my neck, and I'm kind of trying to hold onto it so it doesn't fall, just in case.
Jesus.
And I've got an amplifier in my other hand, small one, nothing major.
Yeah, I'm not
amplifier in my hand,
stack or something.
Yeah, right. And I rode my bike from my house to Roger Taylor's house.
Dude, that's like the whole city. Like you went from one side of the city to the other side of the city.
Yeah, and then back home again at night. But I didn't take my stuff with me on the way home. I was like, I'm leaving it here.
Wow.
I was like, I'll come back and pick it up with my mom. I go, this is dumb. I'm not riding my bike across the city again.
That is dumb. You would probably be tired. We had a lot of energy as kids, but that's a distance. I mean, I used to go to your house and back to Jamestown, and that wasn't even as far as Taylor's was from,
pushing a moped.
Go all the way down to Clay. Yeah, that's bullshit. Fuck all that.
But yeah, we were pretty dedicated, and we were pretty good. I mean, we were doing covers. There was no originals.
No, you guys were pretty decent. Yeah, I know. You guys should have been in a band and cut a demo tape. Never mind.
Yeah, right.
Shit happens.
Yeah,
like 8th grade. Like, yep. Go ahead. Go on.
No. I was just there's a famous story about before. That's what it was. Just before freshman year. I had called Tom on the phone because Chris and I hadn't heard from him or George about coming to practice, about practicing. And you probably heard this one. And I called Tom on the phone. I was like, hey, what's up? He's like, hey, not much. Hey, man, what's going on? And I'm like, nothing. Hey, just wondering when we're going to get together and practice again. School's going to be starting soon. And what do we want to do? And how do we want to do this? And it was one of those things where you could see him like pulling the phone away from his head and looking over at George. I guess George was sitting with him, and he goes, "Didn't you call them and tell them?" And I could hear him. I was like on the phone. And I hear him go, "Didn't you call them and tell them?" And George is like, no, I didn't." He goes, "Oh man, he's on the phone right now." And I'm like, "Dude, I can hear you." I go, "What's going on?" I go, "Are we breaking up or something?" Or is like, "Are we not?" And he's like, "Well, we're going to go jam with some." That's when they went to go jam with Burnett. And then that's when everything turned. He was like, "We're going to go jam with Burnett." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." And I turned around to Chris and was like, "Okay, Chris, well, I guess it's just you and me now." And there was like a little mini war. It was like a little Megadeth Metallica type thing where it was like, "Oh, you guys are going to go do it. Well, me and Chris are going to go do it." Remember, you were part of that.
I mean, I remember being around. Yeah, I wasn't in the band or nothing, but yeah, I remember all that.
Listen, people, Kevin Bear's not, and this is not an insult, he's not a musician. He's not someone
right.
You can sit there and plunk away at a keyboard, and you can, music, you love music, and I know that.
Right.
I got all kinds of music and stuff. So it's not, I'm not saying it in a bad way, but Kevin was the guy in high school who was like, "So Anderson, you play guitar?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "And you got Gilbert who plays drums?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I got this other guy who plays bass. And then I know this other dude, Jimmy, who plays guitar. And why don't we try to get you to work with them?" And that was that period.
Okay.
So maybe that would help you out.
Mm-hmm.
That was freshman year where we sat in my bedroom and you said, "Okay, let's make a demo tape to send to Jimmy." And I sat there and recorded all those riffs for half an hour, and then we realized we had the switch was flipped the wrong way on the recorder, and we had to do it all over again. So there was that's beginning of freshman year. That's when the whole thing started going crazy, where it was like, me and Gilbert are going to do this, and those two are doing that, but they're doing that with Burnett, and they're doing with this. But then Gilbert ended up with them, and I was like, "Wait a minute. How the hell is he with them?" I was like, "I was part of this too. Why can't I be?" And they were like, "Well, we need a singer." And I was like, "I'll sing." So I sang for them. And then,
I mean, it was probably good. Like, I think you were good at singing. Your guitar work, I don't know if you were as dedicated to it. I think you liked to play guitar. Don't get me wrong. And I think Burnett wasn't the right guy. Jimmy was probably the right guy, but Jimmy had no stage presence. He is really great. He can really play a guitar. I mean, he was just really good at it. He's too shy. Like, he just can't be on stage. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, he can, but he's like a session guitarist, really. I mean, he's that's how he was.
He would sit during band practice. It was just like, "Dude, shouldn't you be like standing up?" Because like we're practicing to play these songs live, and like when you're on stage, you're going to be standing up, and you'd just be like, "I feel more comfortable sitting down." You remember Jimmy was a little weirdo.
Yeah.
But like you said, he could play the hell out of the guitar.
Right. Oh, you guys had a great sound. It just, there was egos, and it was a weird time. Everybody thought they were in, Decline of Western Civilization Part 2 or something. And I don't know.
It's all my fault.
So, no, it's not. Everybody was like, they were kicking you out of the band to go with Burnett. Burnett wanted to be Yngwie Malmsteen or something or whatever. And, it was all just nonsense. Everybody thought they were going to be rock stars. I mean, not just in that group. I mean, just everybody that was, in a band anywhere, Snow White. Right. Those guys all thought they were going to be the next Cinderella. You know what I mean? Like it was all everybody. Like it was just a thing back then. Like you just thought, you didn't realize that those bands were going to be playing rib burn-offs later in life. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you thought that was, you could do what they were doing, because it wasn't that hard what they were doing. Nobody really saw that, the music industry can just turn on a dime like that. It's weird.
Right.
No, it was, those were good times. But 8th grade, I don't know. I hung out with Don Cease a lot. Roger Taylor as well, because Don Cease was good friends with him. I never really had too many problems with Roger, but he always had like these, he did some things that were just, I don't know, weird. He's kind of a weird dude. And, but sometimes he just had these plans, these ideas that he wanted to do certain things. And I was always kind of like telling Cease, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. That's, I don't know. It's just weird to me. Like, I'm not, you guys, whatever, but I'm not going to do that, So there was always a little bit of tension, I think, there, because Cease wanted to hang out with me, I think, more than Roger. And whatever. It didn't matter. I mean, I spent a lot of time in computers and all that kind of stuff, but, yeah, that's just, it's a weird thing. And, yeah, I was just thinking about it. Like, I don't know where I got that Commodore 64 from. It was a good thing I did. Changed my life. All right. So last topic I think we'll touch on with this thing. I know I sent you like 5 of them, and I had a couple more I was thinking about, but I want to talk about wills really quick. It's a complete left turn of what we just talked about, but I wanted to make, like, if you're out there and you're listening, I was thinking about this, and it's like, in one day you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to get a will, and I'm going to put a will together. Or, your parents are old and you might be like, I wonder if my parents have a will, or that kind of thing. And I will tell you that, like, my mom, when she was getting old, I think she imagined that when she wrote her will, right, that it would be like in the movies. Everybody would assemble in a room, sit in chairs, right? And the lawyer would read from the will and, bequeath what was onto each party and what they would get, and people would cry and whatever, but they don't do that. Right. Like, and a lot of times, even when they show that now, like in movies, because it's not done, they'll even say like, we normally don't do this sort of thing, but it was, a stipulation that we do it, kind of stuff, because they don't. Like, it's, what I mean? Like, they don't do that. What they do is that, you'll get a letter in the mail if you're going to get something, or if you're not, if you're in the immediate family, and, you'll get a letter, and basically it's going to say something like, Donnie's going to get, 25%, and Ian's going to get 25%, and, Bobby's going to get 25%, and Al's going to get 25%. Let's just say, right? Who knows? But I'm just saying. And, and they send you that, and that's so you can, if you look at it and you're like, bullshit, Al's not getting 25%. Fuck that. We're getting lawyer up. We're going to dispute that. We're going to court. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you can get a hearing, right? So you don't sign it, which is kind of like a waiver. You can get a hearing, and you can go to court and be like, and you can fight it out, because some people do that, right? Sometimes that families aren't, they're not feeling good about it and stuff like that. So like say in your case, Donnie, right? Like your mom has a car, right? So one day hopefully a long time in the future, she passes on, right? That car, you can't just be like, I'm going to take that car. Like, you can't. Now you could talk to your 3 brothers and be like, hey guys, could I have that car? Because like I need it to get around. And they might be like, they might say, okay, but like really it goes into probate, right? And it depends on the will. If the will says Donnie gets the car, then you get the car and you can drive around the car. But if the will just says all of you get 25%, the lawyer is going to sell the car, or the executor of the will is going to sell the car and split the money between the 4 of you. You can't have the car, right? And a lot of people don't necessarily understand that, but where it gets tricky, okay, is with my mom. She wrote things out for all kinds of people all over the country. She had moved around a lot in her life. She left money or items to different people around the country, and a lot of people in the neighborhood, the neighbors, some German lady she met, the Red Hats Association, the Catholic Singles Club, right? Some guy named Martin out in California somewhere, okay? Plus family, my brother's 3 daughters, myself, my brother, on and on, okay? Now, everybody gets a waiver because everybody gets a thing that says, this person's getting this, and this person's getting that, and this person's getting this. And everybody has to sign the waiver and mail it back. And if one person doesn't do it, there's going to be a hearing. And so then you get invited to court. So it becomes a burden to get all the people to sign the waiver, and they have to do it more than once because there's different stages of what you're going through in probate. So This has to, if you've got anybody that's like, think of my brother. My brother gets something he's like, all right, whatever this is. You know what I mean? Like he just throws it on the side.
Right.
It's probably a bill. I'm not paying it. And you end up calling him on the phone and you're like, dude, you've got to mail that in, And he's like, I don't know where it is. Right. It's gone. Jody took it. You know what I'm saying? And so you end up in, but this can be anybody. You don't know the person in California. You know what I mean? You don't know the German woman. Like it's bananas. So, I worked with the lawyer and we had to rustle these things up. And so, my best piece of advice to you out there for, if you ever decide to have a will, if you have special things, like my mom wanted this German woman to have all of her German books, right? Or she wanted $500 to go to the Red Hats and she wanted like $500 to go to the singles group or something. Don't put that in your will. Just ask your executor that you've already hopefully talked to and be like, listen, I want you to give my books to, Hilda over here and give $500 to this group and $500 to that group, et cetera. Those are my wishes. Because otherwise you're really fucking them by having all those things in your will. Now here's some other advice that's not related to that, but remember that, like, just remember that because it can really screw it up. Now, the other thing is like, let's say, Donnie, in your situation, right? You live with your mom, right? And let's say it's her place, et cetera, that you're living in. She's, she owns it or whatever. And she's paying, let's say she's paying the bills. Okay. Like she's paying the mortgage or she's paying it, whatever. So she has a bank account, right? Now, if she passes away, like instantaneously, the money is off limits that she has in her bank account. You cannot go and use the money in her bank account. If you do, and it's found like somebody accessed her ATM card, being you, and it was after her date of death, you're going to have to pay it all back, regardless of what you paid for it, or you're going to get dragged into court and you can go down for theft. Like you cannot spend any of her money on anything until probate decides what happens to that money. So that can be a problem because probate could go on for, in my case, because of all the complexities, it went on for over a year. And now if you got to make a mortgage or, you got to pay some bills and you don't have access to that money, then it's a problem. And so what I suggest people do is, and this is tricky. You got to talk to your elder parent or grandparent or whatever you're doing. But, and I'm not, Donnie, this isn't advice to you. I'm not telling you to do this or anything. I'm just saying, like, people listening, just so you know, I'm not telling Donnie to do anything. But what you should try to do is have the bank account being jointly owned. Be a signer on the account. Just tell them, look, I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to touch it. You can hold on to the ATM card. I don't need the bank book, whatever, but I want to be a signer on the account. Because what happens then is that if they pass away, all of that becomes yours so that you can then spend the money. So you don't have, and there's no legal thing with that. You don't have to file anything. You don't got to do anything. It's just automatic. That person's deceased. Donnie, you would have the money. You can now make the bills and the payments and that kind of thing. And that's the same, that's just how that works. And that can be a big deal. Like at one point, my mom, she was going through, she was still alive, and, but she was going through cancer and she was becoming, she was struggling to think clearly. Okay. And I had to call, she had a lot of, different bank accounts, and I had to call Capital One in order to, and all I was trying to do was move her money out of Capital One, right? Like I'm the executor. I had power of attorney. So I was able to act in her name as long as she was alive, right? So like the minute, if you have a power of attorney, it basically just means that I can sign and do everything for her legally, right? That she can't do for herself as long as she's alive. The minute she is deceased, I no longer have that power unless the court gives it to me. So, but I was at that time, right? but I didn't know like what her passwords and, code words and shit that you use for bank. You know what I mean? Like on the phone, there's different things, even today they might go like, what, even with your cable company, they might be like, what's your secret code? You know what I mean? And you're like, it's 1790 or something. And then they're like, okay, but so like I was sitting there with the people on the phone, and I would have to ask my mom. I'd be like, Mom, they want to know what your code is. And they're like, well, you can't be like, telling her what to do and stuff. Like they thought on the phone that I was like trying to like rip her off or something. Like I was trying to coach her out of her money. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because like she didn't really quite understand what was going on. And I'm trying to be like, Mom, you got to tell them what this is in order to move this money out of there. And they're like, oh, what are you trying to do? You know what I mean? And I had to get on there, and I was like, listen, I'm the power of attorney. My mom is sick. She has cancer. We've got to move this money out of this account. And they're like, well, we don't recognize power of attorney, sir. So your money is going to automatically be deposited into her like Wells Fargo account. I was like they said it in a way like, haha, we got you. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, it is? Mm-hmm. I was like, awesome. Thanks. That's all I need. Do that. And, and they were just like, oh, but, because it's the whole thing is like it's like a shit show. Now, if you get to a point where you have, a 401k, or you might have like some other, like a pension or whatever with your work, like you were in the union, Donnie. I don't know if you ever earned up a pension with the union or whatever, but a lot of times they have like a website or something that you can go to and you can determine who your beneficiaries are. And, you could say, I want to leave this, money to my daughter, et cetera, 100%, or however you want to break it up, split it up, add people, however it is. That money happens regardless of the will. So if you've got money in your 401ks or your pensions or whatever, that they will get that money on release, which is pretty quick. Like you can reach out to those people and be like, hey, got X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
This person's passed on. What do I got to do, et cetera. My problem was everything with my mom's death was ridiculously complicated. And I had to manage all of it. And even in this case, which is normally a very easy thing, Wells Fargo, which was her bank, didn't recognize Ohio. They're not in Ohio. They didn't recognize probate in Ohio or death, or what is it? Death certificates from Ohio, et cetera. Like, so they wouldn't release anything. So I needed representation in their state that they were in, or I had to go there, which wasn't anywhere close to where we are.
Right.
And so I had to get a lawyer by proxy. So my lawyer that was handling the probate had to work with another lawyer to work this through with Wells Fargo in order to get the release. Complicated. Like, think about that kind of stuff when you're eventually going to write something up or leave something behind. Now, some people might be thinking like, fuck all that. I'm not getting a will, whatever. Haha. You know what I mean? But
what do I care?
Yeah, but that can come down to like, again, it might be somebody that is older than you that you might be concerned about their will. You might want to talk to them about that. But it also, like, if it's your will, you have to think too, like, what you do have, like, who is it really? You might have a fantasy inside your head about who's going to get stuff, but if you don't write it down in a will, it might not go to the people you want. You know what I mean? Like, Donnie, you might end up with whatever you have being sold off and given to Julie or something. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't want that to happen, but you didn't specify it in the will. Things can happen. So, the wills are somewhat helpful. Even if you just write one yourself, just write it out on a document that can sometimes be legally viable in court, as your last will and testament versus, one that's just been put together by a lawyer. Anyway, so I just wanted to give some people some perspective on that, hopefully nobody's going to die anytime soon listening to this podcast or whatever, but
you're right.
It can just be like in my mom's situation, it was really complex because she made it overly burdensome. I mean, at one point,
Right.
she sat down with Brian and I mean, this was like closing days or whatever when she was still somewhat lucid. And she was like, I want, you boys to, to know that I want Kevin to have 2% more than you, Brian, because he's doing a little bit more than what you're doing. And Brian was like, that's fine. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. As soon as she was done talking to us, I was like, none of that's going to happen, dude. It's already in the will. Like, I can't just go in there and take an extra 2% of, I mean, how much would that be anyway? It wasn't going to be much. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been stupid.
Right.
But, she was just like, she was still thinking of like ridiculously complex ways to like screw this thing up. You know what I mean? Because she was just thinking in her head, it was going to be like, Knives Out or something. Like, people are going to be sitting in a room and the lawyer was going to be like, and Kevin gets 52% of the money,
right.
and Brian gets 48% because Kevin did more. No, none of that's good. You're making shit really complicated. Like, don't do that.
Well, that's
go ahead.
I was gonna say, kind of like, it's funny that you brought this up because whatever it was, about a year, 3 years ago, whatever, my mom got together with me and my brothers, and we all sat at church. Well, we didn't all sit down, but she pretty much was like, she says, okay, look, this is what I'm doing. She put my name on the house here. And then she put my brother's name on the bank account. And then she's got my other brother on something and my other brother on something. And it's pretty much just like what you were just saying. Cause she's like, in case something happens, this way you guys don't have to, because of what all the stuff she had to go through with my dad and stuff. She was like, you know what? I don't want you guys to have to deal with that. So this is what we're doing. She's like, you're on the house. She goes, if something happens to me, you don't have to fight to get to it or get into it or do anything. Your name's already on it.
Right.
Here's the bank account. His name's on it. He can dole out whatever you know what I mean? So for people out there, yes, this is the wave of the future. And this is what people are doing. So.
Yeah. And if you are getting the house, I would ask her, Donnie, is there still a mortgage on the house or is it paid for? And
no, it's all.
And then you still got to pay property taxes. So remember
that's
that
all you're doing,
in case, and you're like, woo, rent free. And then, all of a sudden you get a tax bill. You might be like, what? Because that's what happens.
Taxes.
That's what happens to me every 6 months. And it's painful living where I live. Anyway, this was just a way for me to just warn you. Like, I took care of it. Everything's fine. I still am the executor I just finished doing the second daughter of my brothers, right? She turned 25 because my mom, who had to make everything complicated, made 3 trusts. Well, 4, if you include Brian's, 3 trusts for each daughter. And each daughter got a certain amount of money when they turned 25. Which was a weird number because, you're kind of an adult at either 18 or 21. So most trusts are 18 or 21 when they're court monitored. Yeah. And my mom wanted one at 25, and that's just not normal. And my lawyer had to find something that worked with that. And she managed to do that, which was cool. But so much time has passed since this all happened. It's been almost 10 years. It was like 2013 she passed away. That my lawyer's deceased. When I don't know if it was COVID or what, but she was pretty old. And so when second daughter came up due, I had to get a new lawyer. So I had to go through some more hoops to get a new lawyer, explain to him what's going on. And I'm actually meeting that guy tomorrow at 8 a.m. and at the Medina County Courthouse. To sign off on some paperwork that's being filed to the court because we just gave second daughter her money that's monitored by the court. And that leaves daughter number 3, who is 19. So in 6 years, I got to do it again. And and Brian gets the rest. Brian gets like a monthly payment, and then he gets the rest of his money. He gets it in a lump sum in 2025. And folks, this isn't like millions of dollars or anything. It's just my mom, made it dumb. You know what I mean? Like she just made like, the normal money, like what Donnie was just explaining, like you get the bank account, my mom made it really complicated and stupid. And, at one point, like Larry was helping, my mom and stuff, and he didn't have a car. And, my mom had 2 cars, and, I had given Larry my mom's one computer because my mom wanted Larry to have something. And Larry was like, well, I kind of could have used the car. And I was like, yeah, unfortunately, that's in the will. And you can't have it because it's, like I can't give it to you. I don't have that power. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, it's like, it's fucked up. It's like it actually said who gets which car. And, and it all had to go through probate. It all had to go through like, the whole rigmarole. It sucked. So, anyway, that's it for the show, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to all the Patreons for supporting the show and everything we're doing. And I hope you guys have been enjoying it. We've got more episodes to come. Everything's going good. That's it.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin. If you'd like to write into the show, send an email to oblast@vgn.us. That is VGN as in video game news. And be sure to check out our Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/VGN, where you can get all of our shows, our videos, and some musings. Be sure to tune in each week for new episodes on our Patreon page or every other week on the public RSS feed that you're subscribed to now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Peace.